Hi there. In our devotion today, I want to take you to John's Gospel, chapter 13. I want to read few verses here. It talks about Jesus washing the feet of disciples. This is after the evening meal. The meal is being served, and then everybody ate it. And Jesus got up and he took his outer garment and he took a towel and wrapped around himself and began to wash the feet of the disciples and then begin to wipe them with the towel, each one of them. And he came to Peter. Peter said, Lord, I don't want you to wash my feet. But Jesus said, unless I wash you, you have no part with me. And then Peter said, not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well. So Peter was willing to learn what Jesus is trying to teach here. This never happened. This is master teacher is humbling himself and becoming a servant and showing them that he is washing the feet of the disciples, each and every one of them. So after he had done this, he took the towel off and then he put on his clothes again. And then this is what happened in verse 12 onwards. It says, when he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. So he is back at the table and beginning to ask the disciples a question. That question is, do you understand what I have done for you? And they are thinking. The question is, I have not done this before, and you have never experienced this, but now I am showing you something that I want you to get the point. And so he asked the question, do you understand what I have done for you? And they were all puzzled. I think their mind was just going in 1,000 miles an hour. And they were thinking, what is going on here? What he is trying to teach here. And then he began to say in verse 13 what he is expecting of them. He said, you call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. Jesus is teaching them that all of them are equal. When it comes to serving the Lord, they are all equal. They have to serve one another. They have to humble to one another. There is no great person, there is no small person here. And Jesus wanted to teach them it is all about humility and servanthood. And then he said in verse 13, I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. So Jesus is showing himself as a servant and humbled himself and showing them this is what I want you to do to one another. And then the second lesson he wants them to learn is that I want you to be an example, just like I am an example, and I want you to be an example. And then verse 16, it says, I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. So knowing something is not a great matter. Knowing, people can come to know a lot of things. If you study something, you will know something. But knowing is not going to make a lot of difference if you don't do it. That is what this verse 17 Jesus wanted to talk about. He said, now that you know these things. That means I am teaching you in a practical way. I washed your feet and I have shown humility and servanthood, and I want you to do the same thing to one another. At the same time, I want you to be an example, just like I am an example to you. And then he said, it is important. Now you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. So knowing and doing is very important. Knowing what God desires in our life is not enough. But knowing and doing exactly what God desires is what matters. Not just the hearers, but the doers of the Word of God, James says in his letter. So What we have learned here is that Jesus, the master teacher, just before he was arrested, he was sentenced to death on the cross of Calvary. He wanted to teach the most important lesson to show how much Jesus loved them. And then he humbled himself and he became a servant and he showed them as an example and he expected them to be the same way. Jesus expects us to be like Jesus in our talk, in our actions, in our thinking, in our doing. That is what Jesus desires. Sometimes it is easy to just hear. You can sit and listen to people, but if you don't do it, what is expected of you, whatever you hear, it's meaningless. And that is why, if you want to be blessed, you have to be willing to do what you have learned from the Lord. Be a blessing to others today. God bless you.